Hey everybody, Matt here with an update for you on Hurricane Lee for Sunday evening. It is September 10th. We are watching Hurricane Lee start to re-strengthen a little bit in the Atlantic. You can see it out here on the tracking map, courtesy of Tomer Berg's website. Tomer Berg, a graduate student at the University of Oklahoma who has a really good site. You can see that we've got winds now moving up back into Category 3 strength. We had weekend lead down to a Category 2 earlier today, but it is back up now to a Category 3. It looks like it's actually going to go through a little bit of an intensification cycle. Again, this was all kind of expected. I don't know that it was expected to be this extreme, going from a Category 5 down to a 2 and now maybe back up to certainly already a 3 and maybe a 4 again. Who knows? We'll keep an eye on that. But when I was looking at things this morning, the odds of another rapid intensification cycle of Lee were a little bit higher than usual. So I think we could see Lee put on a little bit of a show tonight and maybe tomorrow before it starts to kind of struggle again a little bit. There has been some wind shear around Lee that has prevented it from really intensifying too much. So that will continue off and on. I think that'll continue to pester it a little bit. But either way, we're dealing with a formidable hurricane here. And each time it goes through one of these cycles, it grows a little bit. So it's compensating for maybe not being as strong as it was by being a little bit bigger in size. And that can cause problems of its own, particularly when it gets to the north and starts interacting closer to land. Because over the next 5-6 days at least, it's not going to be impacting very much land at all, other than rough surf and rip currents, which you'll definitely have to watch out for if you're going swimming this week anywhere along the Atlantic coast, east coast of the U.S., maybe to Bermuda as well, the Bahamas, North Shore of Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. All these areas are going to see some rough surf, so certainly something to be mindful of if you're going to be traveling this week. But otherwise, in terms of direct impacts from Lee, we're not going to see that as we go through the week. We notice that Lee does start to make its turn to the north here and starts to accelerate a little bit as we get toward the latter part of this week. This, again, is kind of what we expected to happen a few days ago. That's why we sort of said that Florida was going to be fine, and you are fine. Also think they were probably good from the Carolinas south now. So all these areas are probably in the clear at this point. Once you get north of here, the uncertainty starts to increase a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about that. All right, so here is what we call a track density plot. So we're taking all the ensemble members from the European model, the GFS model, Canadian model, UK Met model, which is run from the United Kingdom. All these different models have ensembles, and they're run multiple different times, a little bit of tweaks each time, and you get sort of a better spread in the guidance. And that's what we're looking for at this point, is spread. So we want to know where the goalposts are at this point in time. We want to know not necessarily where Lee's going to end up, but we want a better range for where Lee is probably going to end up. And so that's what we look at this for. And you can see anywhere you've got bright red or orange, there's pretty good model agreement. So it stops right about here, which if you draw this back to the coast is right around the Virginia-North Carolina border. It's just to the west of the Bahamas, or Bermuda, excuse me. And so you can see that, we've got pretty good agreement on this track up to this point. From there, the color starts to fade a little bit. We get more into the greens and then closer to the blues as you get a little bit further north than that. So the confidence as to where Lee's going to go starts to widen a little bit. We get less confident in Lee's forecast, and we see more of a spread in the track guidance. We also see a spread in the timing guidance as well, although that's starting to improve a little bit, but there has been a really significant spread in timing as to when Lee's going to be at a certain point. Like, for instance, yesterday, if you went out, 192 hours, which is 8 days from yesterday. I mean, we had some models that were saying Lee was going to be down here, others saying it was going to be all the way up here. So in general, the track spread was not very wide. It was still kind of in these goalposts right here, but where it was within that track was pretty significant. So we're still kind of ironing that out a little bit as well. So for folks that live in the Northeast, and I'm talking particularly east of Long Island, Cape Cod, the Maine coast, and into the Canadian Maritime provinces, this storm needs to be watched very closely because it is going to be coming to the north. And we're starting to see signs that it's going to continue to go to the north and eventually not go out to sea. It's going to run out of sea to move out to, basically. We thought last week that maybe we could see Tropical Storm Margot, then Hurricane Margot by the time we get to later this week, possibly start to influence a little bit. We might have a little bit of an opening for Lee to get out. Don't really see that right now. So I think that while that's still an option, it's not the most likely option. And you can see that where we've got these darker colors or these brighter colors of yellow and green, it kind of indicates the corridor, at least, that we're most focused on right now, which spreads from about down East Maine into Nova Scotia and just to the east of Nova Scotia. So Maine, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia all need to watch this rather closely over the next couple of days as we sort of iron out this track a little bit. Because again, Lee's going to be moving at a pretty good clip when it gets up here, and will be capable of causing some significant impacts potentially to Canada as it does so. So we'll be watching this through the week. But I think for folks in the mid-Atlantic, you're almost close enough to being in the clear at this point. There's still a couple of ensemble members and some models that do bring it back toward Long Island and southern New England. I don't think that that's very likely, but I would be a little bit remiss if I didn't say you should probably continue to watch it just in case. But really what we're seeing is a little bit of wiggle back and forth within sort of a band that spreads from about Cape Cod to just west of Newfoundland. So that's kind of the corridor that we're focused on at this point in time, and we'll continue to watch it. And as we get a little bit closer through the week, we'll be able to kind of hone in more on impacts and what to expect besides, obviously, wind and rain, which you would expect with these storms. But how significant will that be when it gets up to that latitude? Questions that we still need to answer. So folks in Atlantic Canada, please be mindful of this. Stay tuned and watch it closely. Folks in Maine probably want to watch this closely as well. And folks in southern New England, Cape Cod also want to keep an eye on it as we go through the next few days to see exactly what trends continue. Because, I mean, we're still probably talking about impacts not till the weekend. So we're 5-6 days away. A lot can change in 5 or 6 days, and there are significant track errors that can still occur in that time frame. So there's a lot of uncertainty still with Lee's forecast, but at this point, that's right now looking at model data and looking at our best information. We're honing in on this corridor here as the one to watch for Hurricane Lee's impacts by the time we get to next weekend. We'll keep you posted through the week, and stay safe out there. Take care.